special edition of Just Hearsay. We just wrapped our Husky Howl and disco with a disco culture masterclass from our General Manager of International, Stephen Deering. We are super excited to give you a sneak peek into our One Disco culture. It's a great opportunity to cover a few of the exciting initiatives we're building at Disco, like our new Center of Excellence in Delhi and this One Disco culture. Before we jump in, Stephen, tell us a little bit about yourself and this very long titled role that you have at Disco.
Thank you, Kristin. Nice to be on the podcast with yourself and Katie. So yeah, as you correctly have titled me, I am the General Manager for International, which is Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia Pac. And the emphasis there is on the word general, and that's general not in the military sense, but very much in the jack of all trades, master of none sense, meaning that I am a generalist. So it served me very well. It means that I can dip my fingers in multiple pies, get myself involved in every function in the business, and I lead essentially the P&L for a business out of London on behalf of Disco that includes global functions.
Which is an amazing place to be. You've seen a lot and frankly have done a lot. You started not too long ago with just a couple of people on your team, and now you have oversight not just of London, but a little bit more. Tell us a little bit more of that global presence that we've established.
Sure. So 2 years ago, we were about 3 or 4 people here in London, and with a mandate to try to build up our European operation and scale culture and an organization that was globally consistent with our HQ in Austin. Now, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel and create a whole load of new policies, processes, best practices, and stuff that was already working didn't need reshaping for a market. We just needed to put a bit of a local nuance to it and just make it appropriate and fit for purpose in our market. But by and large, the heavy lifting had already been done in the previous 10 years that Disco had been in business. So we were going to piggyback off that and shamelessly plagiarize everything that was working very, very well in the US and apply it to European business. So we started off with just a handful of people and have scaled that now to sort of in and around 40 across all functions. So we have professional services, marketing, sales, client success, and some other small little functions as well, helping us support that business. And we're now in the process of bringing India online from a professional services capacity that will also report into our EMEA professional services team, as we're going to probably be more beneficial from a time zone perspective. And then we've started to branch out and win customers in an international capacity as well. So we have customers in Japan, we have them in Australia, the Middle East, Far East, and Thailand. And it's really starting to shape up to have a true global footprint, which is where we'd like to play. We would like a truly international business moving forward.
Absolutely. Now, it's great to see you here in our HQ in Austin, Texas, but I can't imagine that you flew over for just culture, but that was your shining moment earlier today with all of Disco. Why are we talking about culture when we've got your breadth of experience coming over from Europe and having had a hand in so much of that growth? Why culture? Why now? Why should it matter to us?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it doesn't matter to everybody. Some people don't really care about it. And that kind of baffles me as to why they don't, because I'm an absolute believer that if you have got a high-performing culture with engaged, motivated people, you will drive a stellar performance. I truly believe that if you get the right people in the right roles doing the right things because they want to, not because they have to, then you'll build a high-performing team that will go the extra mile. So when the chips are down, you're up against the wall, you need that extra performance, and it's the last day of the financial year, you want your team gunning for you, going to market, doing everything they can, turning over every stone to win that last bit of business. And building a culture that's absolutely, runs through our veins as an organization is just so important to everything that we do. And I think so. Besides, well, in addition to the financial performance that I believe that you get, I think it's at least worth 10 points on the bottom line if you've got a magical culture. In addition to that, it resonates with the customer experience, right from conception to delivery. And everything that you do and every touch point with that customer, they will feel whether or not that team member is engaged in the business and enjoys working there, is passionate about working there, is energized, is positive, and will create a fantastic experience. And the flip of that is true as well. If you have a negative customer experience, chances are that you've been working with somebody that hates their job, that doesn't want to be there, resents going to work, and they want to get out of there as fast as they can, right? And some companies get away with that, right, because of what they sell and how they do it, and they don't need to worry too much about it. But we're in the service business here. We're in a software solution service type structured organization. We need to look after customers, and we need to show them that we care and that we care about what we do. It's important, it's meaningful, and we're making a difference. And the way in which we deliver that is through having highly engaged team members.
Yeah, I mean, totally. And you touched on this, Stephen, but from just that continuity perspective from the client side, knowing that they're not going to be working with somebody new every week or every month, which can happen with high turnover environments, which often times equates to bad culture.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of clients ask me, about continuity and about turnover and wanting to make sure that we will be there as their trusted advisor and not just to churn software for them.
Yeah, continuity is a big one as well. And there's a nuance to that in EMEA in that, our notice periods are standard 3 months, right? So you go to market, you interview somebody, you take time to find the right candidate. That's probably a month's worth of time. Then you have to wait 3 months for them to start. Then they start and you invest in them for 3 months to make sure that they get the best onboarding possible and that you set them up for success. So you're already down 7 months worth of productivity. The last thing you want to do is to lose that person. They don't get a great magical experience working here. And then you're back to square one again. You've lost all that time. There's a real cost to that as well. So if you could build an amazing culture that develops people, retains the talent, promotes them, gets the best out of them, hopefully their output and their productivity will be fantastic, but they'll enjoy working here and their tenure will stay, and that will benefit customers, but it'll also benefit our bottom line when it comes to cost management and not having to go out to market and rehire people and retrain them all the time.
Absolutely. Now, you have mentioned magical a few times already in your dialogue. So I would be remiss if we didn't introduce what magic means at Disco to those that are not familiar with it. Can you describe sort of what magic means here and how you leverage that in the tactics for building out an incredible culture in EMEA?
Yeah, sure. So Disco has its global magic values, using the acronym for everything that we want to represent in our work. So meaningful impact, all in, grit and grace, innovation and craft. And we adapted that into a monthly award program. So each month would represent a different letter of the magic values. And then as a leadership team, we would nominate people and vote on the person that we thought had demonstrated one of those qualities over the course of that month. And then they would get a little Amazon voucher and an award, a little glass Dubin to sit on their desk. And the goal there being is that ideally, hopefully that person could collect all 5 letters. Which would be pretty impressive. Nobody's done it yet. And the bigger the team gets, the harder that's going to get. But somebody's already got 2. So they're kind of winning that competition. So we definitely embrace the magic values in our monthly recognition moments. And then annually, we do recognize behavior. We want to recognize performance because there are great performances, but not everybody is in a highly measurable, quantitative role that you can score them accordingly. But everybody can participate from a behavioral point of view. And so when a new team member joins our organization, there's an introductory presentation that I give them, and I talk about the expectations that I have of them and the behaviors that I want to see them demonstrate. And they are integrity, positivity, transparency, urgency, ownership, and passion and pride. And at our annual kickoff, we, again, nominate people who have demonstrated that behavior over the course of the previous year, and we will recognize them again with a nice award, a sort of a cash bonus, and some other little bits and pieces to say thank you for demonstrating those values.
That's awesome. The one that stuck out to me that I hadn't heard before was urgency. What does that mean to you as it relates to behaviors and value and culture?
Yeah, urgency is kind of a bit of a difficult one to demonstrate as well in like every day. But I think what we also stand by in our culture in EMEA is we've managed to build a penalty-free environment where there's no such thing as a stupid question. You can make mistakes, you can fail fast, learn, get out your comfort zone, be curious, experiment, try new things, and challenge, right? And I think where urgency kind of fits into that is that just don't wait for somebody else to dictate the direction that you might want to take or make a decision for you. Procrastination kills all of that kind of sense of purpose, urgency, fast-paced, dynamic energy, right? So, be a leader regardless of your role, act with urgency, get stuff done and get it done quickly. And you know what, if it doesn't work out, fair enough, right? Maybe it won't go well, maybe you'll fail, but that's better to do something than nothing, right? Doing nothing isn't an action, right? So waiting is not an action. I'd much rather you did something and it didn't work out than you did nothing. So I think that urgency one is, let's get on with it, right? Let's get on with the day. Let's make a start. Let's have an impact. Let's go to work, and let's not wait, right? And that's probably my impatience as well, feeding into that value that I want everybody to adhere to. So if everybody is as fast as me, great, we'll get a lot of stuff done.
Well, it flows into ownership too, right? Your point about everyone needs to be a leader, right? Everyone needs to lead this company to success, in their specific roles and work towards the cohesive goal, right? Yeah. And I think it's so important, and it's so important to build a culture where that is the expectation. I mean, I remember when I first started practicing law, at the brand new associate training program, they said to us, you are lawyers now. We do not expect you to act like first-year associates. We expect you to be thinking about everything, thinking, laterally about issues that may come up, understand what people do in the business, and, really act like a lawyer. And I think the same thing is true here, where, you really do need to you don't operate in a silo, in a box.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I loved that there was a back and forth when we were speaking earlier today in front of the whole company of striking the right balance between somebody sitting, resting on their laurels, waiting for direction from whomever, and those of us, and I fall into this category, that often just take on anything that, the issue spotter and somebody that's trying to drive initiatives. And it truly must be that right balance of the energy, but I think practical in nature, and so that you're not trying to take on 15 different things that are sometimes confusing. The other thing you mentioned, or trying to take too many things on that are conflicting. The other thing that you mentioned were just some of the rituals, I call them, that the team has that I really, really enjoy to ensure, well, you tell us about some of the rituals and how they build and support the culture that you're trying to build.
I like that you're using the word rituals, because actually, I call it a cadence, but rituals is a good word, because ultimately, it lends itself to creating a cult-like culture. And if you had that in an organization, like, it's incredibly powerful in a good way, right? In a positive way. Yeah. We don't want to brainwash people, but really, if you had like people that you cut them in half and they bled disco, that's the goal, right? We want people that are so passionate about working here, they feel it's like a cult, and then they tell everybody else, you should join, like, you should come here, you should be part of this. But we had this cadence that we adopted really to engage people, keep them invested in the company, get them participating, and also that then the ownership purely wasn't on the leadership team. So,
Sure.
a great example of this is our Monday morning team meeting. All hands, it's like a stand-up, like a huddle, where everybody comes online at 9:30 in the morning, either in person or on Zoom, and we start our meeting. That meeting has a rotational host. So I think for a period of time, it was me. And I actually think this kind of came out of the fact that I don't want to have to do this every Monday morning. Why isn't anybody else doing it? So we put a schedule in place, and now every team member hosts that Monday morning team meeting. And along with that, they have to come with an educational piece to share with the team. And ideally, that should be valuable, it should be relevant, it should be on topic, it should be, hopefully helps us grow as business professionals. But also, some people have shared, different mindfulness practices, things they've shared around mental health, fitness, and other just things that we probably wouldn't have ever known about these people if they hadn't shared these pieces. And it's been very interesting learning different things, but also getting to know people better because they've shared something that they're passionate about or an interest or something personal to them. So that's wonderful. We then have a process called shout outs, which is peer-to-peer recognition. So we highlight some good work that somebody did in the previous week and give them a mention and a shout out on the call, and we praise them for that. And then we do sort of weekend events, introductions, sing happy birthday if it's somebody's birthday, these kind of little fun things that keeps everybody engaged and motivated.
Stephen, I've had the benefit of participating in one of your Monday meetings, and what struck me is just how, as you said, half of the group was in person and half the group was on Zoom, but people were very engaged and comfortable in speaking up, right? And it's clearly a climate where people feel like they're a part of the meeting. They're not just there to listen to whatever's being said.
I really hope so. And I think we need to work hard at that, because those regular meetings can become stale over time. So you do have to kind of shake things up and move them on and make sure that they are staying relevant and that people are engaged. But to your point there is that one of the books that we have an EMEA book club as well. So we do that quarterly, different book every quarter, and we meet up and we talk about the book. This book, this quarter, we're doing Good to Great by Jim Collins. And one of the things in that book is having an organization where people are heard. And I think that's so important, that we allow people to talk, to share things, to be outspoken, to challenge, to question, and to give feedback about whether they think that's good or bad or indifferent, or, so that we listen to them. They'll stop sharing and they'll stop speaking up and they'll stop being engaged if we're showing that we don't care about them and we don't value their opinion and we're not listening, right? And then all of a sudden, those meetings will become very, very dull because no one will bother. They'll say, oh, well, I tried this before. I told everybody it's a great idea and nobody listened to me. And that'll be a real waste of all of the talent that we go out to market and try and hire in the first place. We want to bring great minds to Disco. And if we do, and if we're successful in that, we have to embrace them and allow that mind to contribute towards Disco at the highest level. So I'm a big believer of making sure that everybody has a voice and that we get to listen to those voices, and that's not just leadership cascading down messages of importance.
Totally. One thing too that just resonates with me a lot is the concept of one Disco. And the last firm that I was at had a saying: treat your colleagues as you would your best clients. And I think that it's just such an important concept to think about how we work with each other, support each other, and operate as one. I don't know if you wanted to say anything more on that.
Yeah, I talked a little bit about it at the session this morning, and I talked around sort of the role of leadership in culture and how important that is, right? And you work your way up the career. And I think, obviously, when I was growing up, I wanted this big senior role, and kind of thought, oh, wow, that would impress my parents. My parents would be really proud of me, and I'd have this big title, and that would be fantastic. And as I kind of went through my leadership career, I realized just how important that it was, that it was nice to be important, but it was more important to be nice. And so I don't think it's necessary to be a jerk when you become a leader, right? You don't need to have a huge ego. You
Amen.
don't need to have status. When you walk out the building, you're no better than the person that was sat outside your office during the day, right? You're all the same people. So just because when you walk through the door, you all of a sudden got your hierarchy and you're so powerful. So I do believe in breaking down hierarchies and being very accessible and personable and knowing people and knowing their name and knowing something about them and their interests and taking a genuine interest in people and showing that you care. I genuinely do. I wouldn't do this job if I didn't, but I think a lot of leaders can fall short of that because I think they're more interested in being a leader than they are in leading a team, right? And so you have to take people responsibility seriously if you're going to go into a career in leadership. And people misunderstand that. They think it's going to be about me. I'm going to become a leader and it's all going to be about me. It's not. You're the last person it's about. You should be completely selfless with your leadership. And it's difficult, right? You've got top performing successful sales guys, right? And these guys and girls have nailed it. They've delivered multi-million successful quotas year on year, made President's Club every year. And we go, great, you'd make a fantastic sales leader. We're going to promote you and become a sales director. And they're terrible, right? They're awful at being a sales director because the reason why they were such a successful salesperson was because they were hugely selfish in a good way. And I'll take that every day of the week. They're just interested in making money for themselves and winning customers. Great, thank you. But if you want to be a leader, there's a whole host of other stuff you need to be good at to be a great leader. So you have to understand the dynamic that it's not going to be about you. It's going to be about your team. You'll be successful by default if your team are. And that's how it's going to work. You've got to treat everybody with respect, dignity. It doesn't cost anything to be kind. It's not a sign of weakness as a leader to be kind, to be humane, to be a nice person. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I think it'll get you further, right? Does my team take advantage of me, or do they respect me less because they think I'm a soft touch? No, I don't think they do. I think I've got a much better relationship with them, and they know our strengths and weaknesses, and we work more authentically as a result, right? I'm very transparent with my feedback. I'll tell them the news, whether it's good or bad, but I'll always tell them the news. And you have to listen. You've got to solicit feedback. You will make mistakes, and then you admit them, right? Nobody's perfect. I'm not the perfect leader that's going to get it right every single time. I'm still trying to work to be a level 5 leader as per Jim Collins's book. And I'm going to get things wrong along the way, but I'm going to hold my hands up when I do. And hopefully I will have also demonstrated that I'm happy to fail as well. So I'm happy to make mistakes. Hopefully they will make mistakes, and being a penalty-free environment, that applies to everybody.
You know, having had the opportunity to come visit your team multiple times now and spend time in the office, in the field, and in the evening events with them, the culture that you have built is palpable, and that relationship is truly authentic. And, you know, it really is something to strive for. So just kudos to you on that one. You also just said something that really resonated with me about leadership and people leadership. You know, Katie and I have both gone in different directions in our careers, managed massive teams, and aren't doing that at Disco now, yet are sought as leaders because of the way in which we work together, work collaboratively. And so as we think about that, there's, you know, a lot of people out there that believe leadership means the number of people that are reporting to you. And I just think that that's false, or people want to excel and grow in their careers, and they think that means they have to be a manager. And it's not always the right fit. What got you to where you are is not what's going to get you to where you need to go. So if we think about, for those individuals that are, you know, individual contributors, what advice or tactics would we give to them to be successful, despite maybe not going into that people leadership career? Yeah. And I'll go first, so as not to put you all on the topic. You know, I really enjoy some of the rituals that we have at Disco. One is our Monday morning WIP meeting, where we walk through everything that engineering and product are going through, as well as our law reviews. And in every one of those conversations, I'm thinking through who else needs to know this information, who will be impacted by some of the decisions that are here, and how can I make sure that we bring those all together? Because it's not always obvious if you're not thinking about others that aren't in the room and you're making decisions that will impact them. So I look for one way to just connect the dots across the organization, across silos, if you will, across teams, to ensure that we're all sort of driving towards that same goal or that same objective.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, right? So you don't need to have a team to be a leader, right? And this kind of lends itself to the point I made earlier in the session today at the masterclass, which was around being the 360 leader, which is another great book by John Maxwell. And his view on it is leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So it's really about your ability to influence. And I think the word influence is getting a bad rap right now because you're looking at Instagram influencers, right? They haven't got a team, but they're influencing loads and loads of people globally, and people are paying them to influence, right? So, but leadership is influence. And when you're talking about what you're doing in your roles, right, without necessarily having a team, your influence is massive because of the expertise that you're bringing to Disco in the roles that you do. But essentially your brand Katie and brand Kristin, right? You're got this huge influence and able to move the business forward in the areas that you support. But then in example of your meeting, what you're then doing is you're leading and coaching upwards, downwards, left to right in a 360 leadership way, right? Regardless of whether you have a team or not. You don't have to have a team to be a leader. And I make this point to people that come to me and say, I really want to be a leader. And of course, I can't promote everybody to be a leader. We just have an enormous leadership team and nobody, actually, no individual contributors in the business, right? So I think it's a great job. I think it's a great way to demonstrate your suitability, but you don't need a team. You can still have huge influence and have a massive impact on an organization and a business without having direct reports. You probably get a lot more done without having direct reports.
I know I certainly don't miss the administration, then the HR work side of having a large team.
Yeah. There are, I think people misunderstand or underestimate the amount of people work that you end up doing when you're in a senior leadership role, right? It's tough to get a good balance around finding time on your go-to-market strategy, customer priorities, and getting moving the business forward rather than dealing with people issues, which can become quite time-consuming if you have a lot of them.
Sure. Katie, anything you want to add to that?
All I would add, I completely agree with what you said. I also think, so I totally agree that connecting the dots is part of it because, we do have lateral visibility, in a lot of ways. And so making sure the dots are connected and I'm seeing that a lot, right? In terms of an opportunity for me to provide value. And then I also think speaking up when, there are opportunities for improvement, right? And being candid about it, being professional about it, but, making sure that visibility, from the right levels of the company is obtained, right? And that you're not just kind of.
Well, yeah, here's the thing, like if you got promoted to a leadership position, do you think that title is just going to help you speak up and then say something, right? You're just waiting until you had the title, and you're going to say something. Right. And I think this is a really interesting topic, right? Because I went to a conference recently and they were talking about millennials in the workplace, or Generation Z, and they were saying, well, if you're a great leader, then you should be able to manage a highly diverse team from all walks of life, ages, groups, and therefore it shouldn't really matter. And I think I made the point is that if you are managing a modern day workforce, as we all are in today's society, right? If you're not adding value, a millennial Gen Z will email your boss, or he'll email your boss's boss, or he'll walk into the CEO's office. There's a real lack of respect for chains of command compared to, like, say, my dad's work, where you wouldn't dare do that, right? So 40 years ago, no one would dare go and speak to the CEO Whereas you've got an internal just kick in the door and go, I'll come up with this great idea. Why isn't anyone listening to me? So I think you've got to lead in a completely different way. Yes, you should be able to lead a hugely diverse team, but you've got to be comfortable not knowing all the answers. So if you're not the smartest person in the room, you just hired a law grad from Harvard, right? They know more than you, right? They know more than me. So about the practice of law, and I need to embrace that. I need to make sure that I'm still leading and coaching and developing in other areas that I can support that individual and help them grow. But you've got to be comfortable not being the smartest person in the room anymore.
100%.
Just don't be the stupid one.
And you reference this, but leading without ego, I think it applies equally to people like Kristin and myself, right? Because we'll impair our own efficacy within the company if we try to pull in too much self-interest, right?
Right.
It really is for the benefit of the company. And so I think, it doesn't just apply when you have a team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you like to say any last words as we wrap up here?
Sure. So I guess a couple of things. We established in the session earlier today that everybody owns culture. It's not something that the leadership team does to you. We just don't do culture and we deliver it in a box and everybody gets on with it. Everybody is responsible for it. And we have to make sure that people contribute. Everybody has to own the culture and therefore they've got to participate in it. So it's the little things like, turning on your camera on Zoom, shutting your laptop, don't being on your phone in a meeting. Speaking up when somebody says, right, it's Q&A, have you got a question? Like, show and demonstrate that you are engaged, okay? And that is infectious. Be positive. You have a choice, right? If you want to work here, embrace the brand, come and bring your A game and contribute to us in a positive way, right? So my call to action is make sure that you are engaged and that you are showing up and that you're demonstrating engagement. Be helpful, be supportive, find ways in which you can help the leadership team. They need help. We all need help. So there's plenty of opportunities. Always going to be lots of things to do. So that will be kind of my first call to action. The second one is a little bit around momentum and where you should spend your time and what you should be doing, right? So it's I guess a tip or a piece of advice I would give. And that would be spend 80% of your time in your strength areas. Don't always think about your weaknesses. Everybody's got weaknesses. Everyone's got blind spots. Everyone's got things they're not amazing at, right? But you spend your whole time and your whole life fixing those. The output of those will not be as significant as if you spent 80% of your time in your strength area, right? Jim Collins talks about giving your best opportunities to your best people, right? And that's the whole point of that, right? You're going to be far more successful. You're going to enjoy it more. The output will be greater. You'll be more successful. So I would encourage you, and when you're thinking about your appraisal, think about the things that you do really well and how you could make those go better than just thinking of all the things that you're not great at and trying to fix those and become better at those. It's not really that beneficial. That's a wrap. And my last piece of advice, don't be gormless.
Oh, Stephen, thank you for expanding our vocabulary with the word gormless. I
didn't know it wasn't a US thing.
I've never heard this before.
So perfect.
Wow. It's perfect.
And thank you so much for joining. You inspired us earlier this morning, and sitting here once again, inspired to go and live and breathe the Disco Magic values. We all here believe that we have an opportunity to make law better, and it's a pleasure to be on this journey with you.
Thank you for having me.